Okay, there's my reaction. Um, okay, I'm sorry. False advertising. This isn't really a reaction video. So sorry about that. My bad. But everybody does reaction videos, and so I thought maybe I'd get a few extra viewers that way. But it probably didn't work. It is a reaction in the sense that I'm going to talk about the video, but well, first of all, I'm pretty sure nobody cares about reactions to The Big Short unless you care about the stock market. By the way, as a little side note, I don't get reaction videos, and the few of them that I watched, like the people who are the reactions they're giving are so obviously staged and fake that it's just kind of laughable. And in that sense, I do find them entertaining. It's like fun, or in some mildly entertaining to watch somebody fake a reaction, um, because they think other people might be interested in their fake reaction and perhaps think it's real. I don't think anybody thinks it's real, though. Sorry. So anyway, and let's get back on track here. Little rants aside. So The Big Short, what an amazing story. Okay, so I watched the film back in the day when it came out. I think that was 2015. And of course, it's based on a book that sorted out sort of the whole subprime mortgage crisis, 2007, 2008. I guess more 2007. It tells the story of three, I guess it's three or maybe four contrarian characters, or at least businesses with various characters in them, who see something that nobody else has seen. And that's what I just find so interesting. And just a fact of the market, of the stock market, that is like unlike anything else. That if you can find some piece of assumed knowledge that is in fact untrue or unreliable, that everybody else relies on, then you have a tremendous opportunity. Okay. Now, this is in a sense true in all of life, I suppose, but in the market, it is even a lot more poignant and a lot more extreme, because you can literally bet with money against bad ideas in the stock market. Okay. You can literally bet with money against bad ideas in the stock market. I think that is awesome. That is so cool, because I've always been an ideas guy. I like to debate people about everything, um, but I don't usually make money at it. But in the stock market, maybe I can. And so Mark Baum is one of the main characters, played by Steve Carell. Very well done, in fact. And uh, once he discovers the problems in the subprime mortgage market, he gets excited about it, and he tells his wife. Um, and by the way, this is from the book, not from the movie. It wasn't in the movie, but he tells his wife, um, "I feel like I just found some treasure. Or I feel I found treasure." And I was like, wow, that's a pretty cool image. Like when you think about like finding treasure as like being an archaeologist, like Indiana Jones or whatever, and you find some gold coins or whatever, um, which probably wouldn't be worth that much money. I mean, they might be worth like $100,000 or something, but not millions of dollars. Uh, but that's developing a contrarian view in the market can actually be like finding treasure, right? You're not out there scouring the hills for something that's buried. You're scouring um, uh, the details of financial institutions and businesses, which um, it transforms something boring into something really exciting. You know how that is. Like, um, I'm a guy that likes to do research, and I used to go when I was working on my graduate degree. I used to go into the library, and I'd be like, "What time is it? It's okay. It's 1:30 p.m. and the library closes at 11. Okay, so I have until 11 to do whatever I want in the library." Ho 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 ho! Like I was pumped about it. Why? Well, it's because I was tracking an idea. Like I was into something. Like I was. it wasn't just like, oh, here's all these boring books. Oh, who has the time to read it? No, it was like I had an idea that I was pursuing, and I had all the time that I needed to sit down and pour through books and make notes and prove that I was right. And so it was an adventure. It wasn't just a tedium. And I think that that turns, it's that finding the goal and orienting yourself towards the goal of what you're doing. This applies to all of life, I suppose, right? But it makes so many things that are tedious on the outside, and that outsiders might say, oh, well, who would ever want to comb through all that data? I mean, give me a break. Like, sounds so boring. But if you're chasing an idea that's going to make a difference to you or to the world, it is going to be interesting. And it doesn't really matter what the data is. It might be, totally dry stuff. It might just be numbers, whatever. It becomes interesting when you understand what the goal is. And if the goal is, let's say, $1 billion, let me put it that way. If you, let's just say that you had the guarantee. Let's see. If you could guarantee that after, spending long days for 1 year studying through dry company data, you would make $100 million. Do you think you'd be interested? I mean, I would. I'd be like, sign me up. I'll do it right now. And I'm not saying, like, my point isn't, do you think you could put up with that tedium for a year? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that once you signed up for that, it would become interesting. Well, of course, it doesn't really work for the scenario I'm setting up, because if you already knew you were going to make the money, then yeah, maybe you would slack. But if you knew that there was a strong possibility and you were chasing something, it would become interesting. Okay, so that was just a little side thing. But what I want to do is see if I can briefly explain the subprime mortgage crisis. And it's more just like an exercise in explaining stuff. So if you kind of know what this is about, then let me know if I missed something. And I'm sure I'm going to sort of brush over some things and miss something. But the basic idea, the basics. Okay, so the basics is that starting in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003, banks began to lend money to people who could not reliably demonstrate that they were going to be able to pay it off. And so these were called subprime loans. Okay, and part of the motivation for this is apparently that they ran out of customers, right? Because the market was booming, house values were going up, and they wanted to lend more money. But all the people who could pay back loans had already borrowed money, right? So now they had to start lending money to people who couldn't pay it back. And of course, it's nearsighted. But the people who originated the loans, like the actual loan officers who did this, they weren't. They didn't have to see them through to the end, right? Because they would originate the loans and then they would pass them on to another institution. And so basically, those loans would be kind of be sold up market, as it were, and so then they ended up being owned by companies specialized in owning mortgage loans, and then those mortgage loans were packaged up to be resold in the market, and so they were packaged up as bonds. And so this is something I learned recently, which I did not know, so I'm going to explain it as well, what a bond is. And it's interesting because the book doesn't explain what a bond is, which I thought was kind of an oversight. But the assumption is, I guess, everybody knows what a bond is. Well, it's not true. Everybody doesn't know what a bond is. So a bond is a loan, all right? So it's different than buying stocks. When you buy stocks, you buy a piece of company. When you buy a bond, you're actually lending money. And so government bonds are very common, right? And so you basically say, if you buy a bond for $10,000, a government bond, then you're lending $10,000 to the government, and the government will pay you interest on that loan. And so the interest comes on a regular basis, 6 months, 3 months, whatever, the stipulation is. And then at the end of a period, 6 years or 10 years or whatever, then you also get your money back, right? So you got the interest and you got your money back. And the interest isn't massive, right? So it's not like the investment that's going to make you a millionaire. It's just something to keep your money, from not losing value. and is very secure. But there's one thing that can go wrong with a bond, and that is that the company that you're lending to, the institution you're lending to, could go bankrupt. And in that case, you won't get your money back. All right, so that's really the only thing. And so because of that, then there are agencies that rate bonds so that people can know if they're trustworthy or not, if it's a good investment, all right? And so this is Moody's and S&P are the ones who will rate a bond and say, this bond has a AAA rating, which means it's like the most secure bond ever. So you can, with great confidence, buy bonds and enjoy the benefits of it. And so what happened in the subprime mortgage crisis is that all these subprime mortgages were packaged up into bonds, and then they were resold on the market. But they were packaged up in such a way that they were vastly complicated. And it was extremely difficult to actually sort out all the details and to tell if they were reliable or not. To tell, for example, if all the mortgages represented in a particular bond were subprime or not subprime. Like it was possible to do it, but just very difficult. And so the ratings agencies really messed up, and they basically just started rubber stamping these bonds. And there's a great scene in the movie where Mark Baum and another one of his partners go visit a representative at Moody's, at the rating agency, and the woman who plays the agency representative has just gone to the eye doctor, right? You know how when you go to the eye doctor, they dilate your pupils, so then you have to wear those glasses all day, right? Like sunglasses. And they're like these big awkward looking square sunglasses. Well, so she was wearing those, and she's like, oh, I had to go to the eye doctor. And it's like, oh my goodness, what an awesome metaphor. Like, it was obviously there on purpose. It's a metaphor, right? Like, the rating agencies can't see. And so that's really one of the key pieces. Like, if the rating agencies had been doing their job, basically this wouldn't have happened. But they weren't. They were just rubber stamping bonds that came their way. And so many people, in fact, the entire market fell for the idea that these were reliable bonds, and that the mortgage industry as a whole was highly reliable, when in fact it was nothing of the sort. All right, and so the contrarian position was exactly that. Everybody thinks the mortgage bond market is the latest and greatest thing, and that it's awesome and that there's nothing wrong with it. The contrarian position is they are completely and absolutely wrong. And the test of it came when so when people got subprime mortgages, they got what's called a teaser rate, or they were adjustable rates. And so basically that meant that for a couple years you would have a low finance rate for the loan, and then after a couple years it would go up to something that was more realistic. And then those people who had subprime mortgages would not be able to afford them. And it was clear as day if you looked at the data. And so the test came at that 2-year period when those subprime mortgages began to go to the new rate. And that's when people started defaulting on their loans en masse. Thousands of people started defaulting on their loans. And at some point you just couldn't hide anymore the fact that these bonds were actually worthless. And so the market had placed billions of dollars into these bonds as though they were instruments of wealth. And in fact, they had no value, or very little value. And so as soon as those loans started defaulting, everybody could see that the bonds had no value. Basically various institutions couldn't even cover the billions of dollars that they were down because of that, and so they crashed and burned. And some of the major institutions, the banking institutions in the country, only avoided bankruptcy because the federal government propped them up because they were too big to fail. So that's basically the story. There's more details to it, obviously, but I just find it a really fascinating lesson. And you know, I'm not like in the stock market as a um, with some kind of grand scheme at this point, you know, like as though I'm going to go like out there and revolutionize the world and find, you know, billions of dollars of hidden money. That's crazy stuff, right? So that's not what I'm not posturing as that. But I am just learning the lesson that and clarifying the lesson that contrarian thinking seems to me is an extremely important thing to pay attention to in the market, and that if you can find those places where everyone thinks something is so but isn't, that there's that's a really good opportunity. But as a just as a general sort of strategy to whatever you end up doing specifically in the market, whatever I end up doing specifically in the market, I'm going to, you know, try to keep that sort of contrarian view, and kind of, you know, just always questioning things. The market is a place where you can get taken advantage of pretty easily. Like it's kind of the Wild West in some ways. And so you shouldn't take for granted. I shouldn't take for granted. No one should take for granted that that all systems in place are going to play nice with your money. This is not the case at all. As everybody says when they talk about the market, you know, it's dangerous and you can lose your money. So anyway, that's my reaction video to The Big Short. So okay, well, don't click subscribe because that's what everybody says. Okay, catch you next time.